One of the biggest mistakes we see people when they give their first speech at Toastmasters, which is their icebreaker speech, is that they try to make it perfect. We want to try and make our icebreaker speech as good as possible so that we impress the audience and ourselves. But that's not the point of giving an icebreaker speech. The point of giving it is to introduce ourselves, to get more comfortable with the stage, and to amplify our own personality. And that's what we're going to talk about here. How do we give an effective icebreaker speech? How do we make our preparation process easy and give a speech that we're actually proud of without stressing to make it perfect? Hey, my name is Radeep and I'm the founder of Frantically Speaking, and I love learning about effective communication and sharing those learnings with you so that you can level up your communications game as well. We're going to divide this into 4 parts. We're going to talk about what you need to do to prepare for your icebreaker speech, followed by what we need to do on the day of the speech, followed by the delivery aspect, and what we need to do after the speech is done as well. Now, all 4 of these sections are important because they either help us give a better icebreaker speech or they help us understand how we can learn better from the speech to improve our following speeches. Starting off with the preparation process. The first thing that you want to do is you want to research about our icebreaker speech. Now, the purpose of an icebreaker is to introduce ourselves to the audience. So when we say research, we don't necessarily mean things like fact-finding or anything along those lines. We're trying to talk more about understanding what should be included within an icebreaker speech. Now, the simplest way to do this is to simply ask your mentor about it. A senior Toastmasters member will very easily be able to tell you what an icebreaker speech should include, because it's such a common speech and they've probably seen it a lot of times. Essentially, we just need to give a little background on ourselves. Where are we from? What is our occupation? What are our hobbies? What are our goals, our dreams, our ambitions? Things of that nature. But the most memorable icebreaker speeches I've seen tend to have just one story which defines a key moment in that person's life. One of my friends did this really well with not 1 but 3 stories. He essentially picked out 3 phases of his life which all circled back to one message that he wanted to deliver, which is that at heart, he's an explorer. And that's how he wanted to introduce himself to his club. So he spoke about his childhood, about how he traveled the entire country with his dad. Then he spoke about his college when he took his first solo trip. And finally, in adulthood, how he's trying to structure his career so that he can travel for a living. And all of it very beautifully circled back to his personality of being an explorer. So when you're trying to pin down your thoughts of what you should include within your icebreaker speech, try to think of what message you want to give out to the audience and think about the stories that you can use to amplify that particular message. Now we come to the writing process. When it comes to writing the speech, don't try to make it very complicated. It can be as simple as just your introduction, body, and conclusion. A lot of us find it very hard to think about ideas or what to really include within our speech, but the truth is it can be very simple. We can simply start off with literally introducing ourselves. What is our name? Who we are? Where do we come from? What do we do? As simple as that. Then we can move on to telling the audience a story which was a key turning point in our lives. And this kind of circles back to the example we spoke about previously, about the 3 different stories to amplify one particular message. Now, when I was writing my icebreaker speech, I could never really think of any key turning point in my life that I wanted to speak about. So I just spoke about my life in general, some experiences in school, in college, and making my way through adulthood. I'm putting a link in the description below of my icebreaker speech. Now, it's not what an ideal icebreaker speech should be, but that's not the point of it. The point is just to show you other examples of what an icebreaker speech can look like. It's very common for people to suggest that a speech should have a very gripping introduction and a very strong conclusion. But for an icebreaker speech, that's not necessarily required. If you can, it's great, but it's not necessary. It's okay if we keep it simple in this case, as long as our content is authentic and coming from a genuine experience. If you're still confused about what to include within your speech, we're putting 3 sample speeches in the link below. Don't copy the speeches, of course, but use them as inspiration for your own content. Once you have a rough structure down, start editing your material. Try to find redundancies within your speech that you can remove. Are there things that you're repeating again and again? Is there something that can be said in just 1 sentence as opposed to 3 sentences? Doing this will help make your speech a lot more meaty and automatically a lot more engaging. After you're done with this, run your speech draft by your mentor. Running your speech by a senior Toastmasters member will easily help you eliminate certain mistakes that are made when you're first writing a speech. And lastly, but most importantly, practice your icebreaker speech. Now, I've seen both ends of the spectrum over here. People who go insane practicing for the icebreaker because they want it to be perfect, and people who just practice the night before and then they wonder why it didn't go so well. A sweet spot in the middle is to practice your speech 7 times. Twice in front of the mirror, twice just audio recording your speech, twice video recording your speech and sending those videos to your mentor for feedback. And lastly, try roping in your family members or friends and try practicing the speech in front of them. Now, 7 times feels like a lot. At least practice your speech 3 times. If you can do it 7 times, then great. But if you can't for whatever reason, minimum 3 times practice required. Let's move on to what we need to do on the day of your icebreaker, but before you actually deliver the speech. The first thing is about dressing correctly. When it comes to dressing, we need to find some sort of a middle ground here. We shouldn't try to be too casual or be extra formal like a suit or something like that. Ideally, something semi-formal like a shirt and a pant would be just fine for your icebreaker speech. The other thing to keep in mind that because this might be the first time we could be speaking on stage, we might feel extremely nervous to even eat on that day before the speech is even complete. Now, this is a big mistake because I've known the difference between going on stage with an empty stomach and with a full stomach. When I go with an empty stomach, my energy is just lower. I tend to fumble a lot more. And even eating something as simple as a fruit or a glass of milk can help so much to just calm that anxiety down a little more. And if you're feeling extremely nervous before going on stage, try to avoid caffeine until your speech is over because it just makes that feeling of anxiety a lot worse. Also, try and make sure you reach the venue about 15 to 20 minutes before the meeting actually begins. The reason why this is important is because it helps you actually move around on the stage before the meeting begins. So while the audience is kind of settling in, you can go on the stage, move around a bit. It really helps calm the nerves down, especially because it allows us to get a little more used to the stage. And in no way does it eliminate any sort of fear that we have of presenting, but the fact that we've already been on the stage once, even if you're not really talking or anything like that, just helps as opposed to going on stage for the very first time and having all those eyes stare at us directly. And the last two things to keep in mind before you actually give your speech is to request somebody in the audience to video record your icebreaker speech. And we'll talk a little more about why this is important later on in the video. And the last thing to keep in mind before you go on stage is to remember that you can take your notes with you. Even if you feel like you don't need them, but still have that 1% doubt that you might forget a line here and there, take your notes with you. Don't refer to them if you don't need to. It's just good to have them as a backup. And moving on to the third section of this video, which is the delivery aspect of your icebreaker speech. The very first thing to keep in mind, what is a common mistake among speakers, especially new speakers, is that when we go on stage, when we're called on, we hit the stage and we directly start speaking. Instead of that, when you're called on, you're most likely going to be called on by the Toastmaster of the day. When you're called on, shake their hand, wait for the applause to die down, take a few seconds, take a deep breath, and then start speaking. This just helps us start from a much more grounded place as opposed to just going on stage and directly speaking. After that, as soon as you start speaking, if you're a naturally fast speaker like me, or if you're extremely nervous, you might tend to pace your words. That's a very common thing that can happen, especially if we have stage fright. So the only thing that we can do over here is that if we practice, we're mainly good to go, but we should try and be a little conscious about our pace. If you notice that you're speaking too fast, simply pausing every now and then, maybe before an important point or before moving on to the next section of your speech, will automatically help you slow down your entire speech. Another very important thing when it comes to speech delivery is your eye contact. Now, this is something that everybody talks about. And the thing with eye contact is that for me, it was very, very difficult to maintain eye contact. If I would maintain eye contact with a lot of people initially, I would just blank out on stage. If you don't have that problem, then the solution is pretty obvious. Try to maintain eye contact with as many people as you can across the entire room. But if you are very nervous about doing this, there are a few things that have helped me with regard to eye contact. Firstly, if you have a few friends within the club, try and make those friends sit at different junctures of the meeting room and then only look at them while you're delivering your speech. Because you're already familiar with them, maintaining eye contact with these people will be a lot easier. But if you don't know anybody in the club, then there are two things that you can do. If you're in a large meeting room, you can try and look at different objects as opposed to people. What I used to do is that I used to look towards the end wall directly. Of course, don't look too high, but look straight and try to scan across the entire room. Or I would try and look between the chairs of the audience. So this gives the illusion that I'm actually looking at people when I'm actually just looking at objects. But if you're in a small meeting room, this might be too obvious. In such a case, you either want to try and look at people's foreheads or the area between their nose and their chin. This will again give the illusion that you're maintaining eye contact with people while getting away with it. And slowly, as you get more and more comfortable with the stage, you'll be able to maintain direct eye contact with the entire crowd. And the last point that I want to address with regard to delivery is that we shouldn't try and be very flamboyant or very perfect with the icebreaker speech. The entire point of the icebreaker speech is to make sure that we are just trying and giving it our best shot. The idea is to find our strengths and weaknesses when it comes to public speaking. So if you are naturally introverted and soft-spoken, you don't necessarily need to change that. And finally, what do we do after the speech is over? Now, after the speech is done, the club themselves will assign you an evaluator who will evaluate your entire speech in front of the entire club. Now, when they're doing this, make sure to listen intently, take down notes if you have to, and respect what they're saying. But remember that at the end of the day, Toastmasters is a voluntary organization, and there is a chance that no matter how good the evaluator's intentions are, their feedback might not be all that applicable to you. In most cases, what they're saying will definitely help you improve as a speaker, but remember, you don't have to take that as the final and absolute truth. Instead, what's helped me a lot more is two things. The first is, of course, that if we did request somebody to take a video of our icebreaker speech, just simply rewatching that again and seeing how we perform while we're on stage makes so much of a difference in terms of self-critique and self-feedback. And the second thing that's really helped me is to actually go up to senior members within the club who did not evaluate my speech and just ask them for their advice and their feedback on your speech. Most clubs do have a few senior members who are actually amazing speakers and communicators, and they're most likely very open to talking to new members and actually giving their 2 cents on that particular speech. And frankly, these two things have helped me a lot more than just the actual formal evaluation. And that's essentially it, how to deliver and prepare for your icebreaker speech. If you have any more questions when it comes to things like public speaking, Toastmasters, or overall communications, we have an entire website with in-depth articles, resources dedicated just for that. So go check out franticallyspeaking.com.